Officials in Canada, China, and Mexico are expressing alarm at President-elect Donald Trump's plan for new tariffs on products imported from their countries. And tens of thousands of protesters have taken to the streets in Pakistan this week. Good morning. I'm Corva Coleman from NPR News, and here are today's top stories. President-elect Donald Trump is threatening to impose 25% tariffs on all goods entering the U.S. from Canada and Mexico on the day he's sworn in. He says that's to stop the flow of undocumented migrants and illegal drugs into the U.S. There's reaction to this news coming from Canada. Dan Karpenchuk reports the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, says these tariffs would be devastating.
Ford's comment came less than an hour after Trump suggested that he would be signing an executive order to implement the tariffs on his first day in office. Ford says a 25% tariff would be, quote, devastating to workers and jobs in both Canada and the U.S., adding that Ottawa needs to establish a Team Canada approach and response. Ford says Prime Minister Justin Trudeau must call a meeting of all the provincial premiers as soon as possible. Trump has said the tariffs would remain until Canada and Mexico stop drugs and migrants from crossing the border illegally. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce has said that even a 10% tariff on Canadian goods would seriously impact the $30 billion a year in exports to the U.S., resulting in a major hit to the Canadian economy. For NPR News, I'm Dan Karpenchuk in Toronto.
A Chinese spokesperson rejects the allegations that China lets fentanyl precursors into the U.S. NPR's Emily Fang says the spokesperson also defended trade ties with the U.S.
The proposal caused a stir in China, prompting its spokesperson in the U.S. to say the allegations, quote, run counter to facts and to reality. The spokesperson, Liu Pengyu, warned, quote, no one will win a trade war or a tariff war. During his first presidential term, Trump imposed tariffs of up to 50% on more than $300 billion worth of goods in order to reduce the U.S.'s trade deficit with China. China, in turn, slapped its own tariffs on U.S. goods. Tariffs, some economists say, cost U.S. manufacturing jobs.
NPR's Emily Fang reporting. He's also promised to cut government spending using a tool called Impoundment. NPR's Franco Ordonez explains.
Congress has the power of the purse. It decides how money should be spent. Impoundment is when the president kind of holds back money that Congress has approved for a specific purpose. Trump and his allies argue a president has the right or should have the right to not spend those funds. And that's raising alarm bells across Washington that Trump may be trying to overstep his power.
NPR's Franco Ordonez reporting. In Pakistan, tens of thousands of supporters of former Prime Minister Imran Khan have marched into the capital to demand his release from jail. Omkar Khandeka reports the army is responding to the unrest.
Protesters across Pakistan marched into Islamabad in response to a call by the former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Police fired tear gas and blocked roads with shipping containers. Protesters responded by pelting stones and climbing over the barricades. A spokesman for Khan's party said police killed one person and arrested thousands of their members. The Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif called the protesters extremists and deployed the army in the capital. Journalists also report they have been surrounded and attacked by Khan's supporters, and some had their equipment smashed or stolen. For NPR News, I'm Omkar Khandekar in Mumbai.
There's a political feud in the Philippines between the country's president and vice president. Vice President Sara Duterte says she has told someone to assassinate Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., his wife, and the Speaker of the Philippines House if she is killed. Philippines authorities are investigating the vice president. President Marcos has given a televised statement. Without mentioning the vice president, he says the criminal plot should not be allowed to pass. There are some record-setting milestones in this week's Billboard music charts. NPR's Stephen Thompson has more.
Shaboozey's A Bar Song Tipsy has pulled into a tie for the longest run at number one of any song in the history of Billboard's Hot 100 singles chart, which dates back to 1958. The song has now sat atop the chart for 19 non-consecutive weeks, dating back to July. The other song that's held the top spot for 19 weeks, Old Town Road by Lil Nas X, which topped the chart for 19 consecutive weeks back in 2019. There's also a major milestone on the Billboard Albums chart. For the first time ever, 3 K-pop acts hold down spots in the top 10, the boy bands ATEEZ and ENHYPEN, as well as Jin of BTS. Stephen Thompson, NPR News.
The site Dictionary.com has picked its word of the year. It is demure. The word rocketed to fame this past summer after a TikTok influencer used it in videos to describe how she dressed herself for work. Influencer Jules LeBron popularized the phrase, very demure, very mindful. Dictionary.com says the use of the word demure helps reflect the stories that we tell about ourselves. I'm Corva Coleman, NPR News, from Washington.